Martial World Teyvat Chapter 1. My isekai experience was honestly a solid 8.5 out of 10. I wasn't tortured or even bullied by my extremely powerful alternate selves who were reincarnating me. They gave me a potent cheat of inborn knowledge of powerful technology and told me I was getting sent to Genshin Impact, and that was it. I was happy. Literally more than ha. I was fucking ecstatic. Sure, the cost of my reincarnation and cheat was that I couldn't get a vision for whatever reason or elemental powers from a statue, but I had to supposedly earn it. But whatever, it was Genshin Impact. In the face of Eula's thighs, Lisa's mommy energy, and best girl Shinha, I was more than happy just having the technology downloaded into my head. And what great technology it was. DRG, or Deep Rock Galactic, and the technology systems within the other tech game Satisfactory, which focused on the manufacturing aspect of resource gathering. I absolutely adored both games, which the same development company made, but either way with those technological bases that combined with DRG being perfect for resource gathering and Satisfactory for manufacturing, I was confident I would become richer than even Ingwang and Snezn Hyatt put together within a week or two at most. There was just one slight issue. This Genshin Impact was even more of a damned death world. I awoke in a field, on a massive field on the edge of it with endless grass and beautiful mountains in the distance that broke the large flat dozens of miles wide plateaus that seemingly each had their own habitats before they slid down into the mountains' valleys. And in the far distance, literally at the end of my vision looked like civilization that I could see from my own plateau was the glimmering clear blue ocean, and in the distance on the coast of the ocean was a large walled city from the tiny pricks I could make out in the city's walls that I thought made up the wall or something instead of a simple mountain. Okay, Jake, take stock of yourself, I muttered as I took in my surroundings, and seeing no animals or whatever I then moved on to check myself and blinked as I saw I was clad in a red flannel work jacket with coveralls over my legs while also wearing jeans under the overalls. It was surprisingly comfortable, and I didn't at all feel like I was overheating despite the outfit. Checking my pockets, I took out a note and I blinked as I read it, then my hands holding the note twitched and finally I facepalmed as I finished the damned fucking note. To Jake Barris, number 74324, your technology knowledge is game-based in operation, so expect infinite iron ore from a single spot of iron ore popping up from the ground. Either way, your technology however can run off the elemental energy of the world as well as mundane energy sources, so don't discount such things at all. Due to the world's dangers and not wanting to directly teleport you into the city as the supernatural beings within could likely feel the spatial disturbance, I personally give you my Fatebringer, the gun that carried me through a good chunk of my travels through Destiny before I got my Thorn. Then as I finished reading the note, a small wormhole formed, and from within the pitch-black circular void came a beast of a hand cannon, painted gold with red lights on the indents where the bullets would be, along with a red laser mounted atop and on the side of the gun perfectly aimed straight along the barrel so I would have a clear view of where the bullet would lead with two thick laser pointers that I could see even in the bright daylight. As I took the hand cannon there was another little slip of paper tied to the trigger guard of the gun that clearly read, "Don't think you can rely on this gun to overpower the world, even if I modified it to recharge off ambient energies, the natives of this version of Genshin Impact are not at all what you expect. Also, good luck making more Destiny tools, weapons, and exotics, and maybe even acquiring the hint of my true light that makes up the core light in the gun to give yourself Destiny abilities. I highly doubt you will, but hey, I can always hope to see another Guardian come out of the Jakes. P.S. If you do unlock the abilities and become a gay titan, I swear to God I will smother you with a pillow. Love, Jake Barris, your much more handsome alternate." Hunters are the best anyway. I muttered as I reminisced about Best Brocade 6 that just made Destiny so damned great. Either way, with the gun in hand, I definitely felt a lot more confident as I made my way carefully down the slopes of the plateau and down into the valley that I believe would lead me into the city of Liyue in the distance. Even as I carefully made my way down the plateau my mind was filling with information. Information that went beyond just DRG and Satisfactory technology. I was given technological wisdom. What did what, why it did that, secrets of metallurgy, secrets of the very universe that made my steps lock in place and make me trip as the reality that I knew exactly how to make machines that would encase the very sun within a Dyson sphere that would capture the sun's solar output overwhelmed my mind. And from that wisdom, I could imagine things. I could use that wisdom from how to make space elevators, trucks, trains, and nuclear power systems to make mechs if I wanted to. It was glorious, and already all I fucking wanted to do was tear apart a television, a toaster, and finally a refrigerator to make a programmable fabricator to get started. But such thoughts needed to be put aside. The clear valleys were soon shown to be dense forests, thankfully without much brush, but that didn't change how the previously bright warm sunlight radiating onto me darkened as I finally entered the shaded canopy that was the thickly forested valleys. So that's gotta be Liyue in the distance, I muttered, as although the general surroundings were very different from what I remembered from my many hours of Genshin Impact, but the game was just that. The game, I knew for a fact that, unlike in the game, a real-world nation would have more than 36 buildings max in the capital city of the nation, with the game trying to show us that there were at best 1,000 people in Liyue. But that same real-world logic also translated to Liyue not being some little province you could walk across in like half an hour at most. Even though the city was in view from the mountaintop/plateau I was previously on, that didn't mean it would be a quick jaunt over there. Either way, as I made my way down the valley, I kept Fatebringer in my hands with my finger across the guard, as I had gun regulations drilled into my head since I could hold a little .22 in my hands. And that readiness was for the best, as I heard a weird chittering noise come through the forest that made me quiet my steps. Just as when you are hunting, and possibly walking/stalking up to something. When you get surprised, you don't just stop on a dime, as you will always jerk or even stomp your foot to stop moving in a hurry. You just slow down and relax, find your footing in the leaves, and make sure there isn't a stick below your feet as you come to a stop. I looked around, hearing that terrible chitter turn into loud clackings, like a wooden spoon tapping on a table loudly, or a large bird's beak loudly snapping open and closing repeatedly. I looked around, even above me, looking for whatever was making that noise, as I wondered what in the hell was doing that. Hilichurls didn't make such noises. They were almost tribal and made stereotypical tribal noises as they danced and played around with their friends when they weren't trying to tear apart humans and wildlife. Then the sounds got louder. True fear began to set in. I wasn't some supernatural being who could punch out monsters. Even if I had all the knowledge and skills of Tony Stark, which I didn't, but that still didn't make me the Hulk who could win any straight fight. The noises grew closer, making it impossible for me to pinpoint their origin. I looked around quickly, as with Fatebringer held up clearly ready to shoot. My gaze darted from tree to tree, searching for whatever could be making that disturbing noise. I mentally swore I caught glimpses of movement in the shadows of the trees, shapes flitting just beyond the reach of my vision. And without a doubt, I knew I was being watched by something. Then a large branch snapped violently above my head, and as I looked up, I instantly saw a figure. There was an apparition of pure darkest shadows that quickly merged back into the shadow of the tree. But there was no mistaking those malevolent purple-slitted eyes that ever so briefly gazed downwards upon me. And whatever that was, it didn't like me looking at it. All my senses and instincts were screaming at me to run. A not-so-little voice in my head was much more vocal, in fact. Screaming something along the lines of, "Run, bitch, run." But I didn't, as I knew that turning my back and fleeing would only make me look like prey to this clearly supernatural being. So I took my time. I tried to look casual even if my hands shook, even as I felt the textured rubber grip of the gun become wet with sweat, and I gripped the hand cannon harder for comfort even as the rubber bit into my skin. I visibly was calm as I made my way through the forest despite the noises. The clicking, however, changed. It began a rasping, echoing, groaning, choked noise, and that sound broke my inhibitions. The moment I saw a flash of purple at the corner of my eye, I whipped my arm to the side and pulled the trigger of Fatebringer.